Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Tulley, President and Executive Writing Coach at Defend, Publish, and Lead. And welcome to episode 283, starting the next project on the list. What you're looking at, if you're watching this on YouTube, is my summer 2026 project progress tracker. This is something that we are doing as part of our summer accountability group at Defend, Publish, and Lead. And I'll say more about that in a minute. But what this episode is building off of is episode 281. We looked at finishing a project. So what did you need to do to finish a final project? I gave the example of me finishing a book manuscript. And I also talked about the idea of what happens, right after you finish something, what are some things that you should do? So some of those things were, for example, saving any tabs that were open that had sources because I don't know if I'm going to need those again in my references page. And so I bookmarked them and talked about all those kinds of skills. And for this episode in 283, I want to talk about that move between finishing a previous project and then moving to a next one. So what is the way that you might do that? So you don't have to be watching this on screen, but you can if you want to go check out 283 on YouTube and you can see what I'm talking about. I'll definitely describe it for you. So one of the things that I do once I finish a writing project is, of course, I look at whatever the next project is on the list. But for me, it also depends what type of project, and I feel like I need just a little bit of time to get organized. And sometimes we need a recovery period, right? So the project that I talked about in 281 was a book project, a manuscript project that I had been working on pretty steadily for between 9 and 12 months. So, I definitely took a couple days off if you listen to that episode. But now I'm thinking, all right, well, what is the next project that I'm going to do? And so one of the things that I've started thinking about is that some projects for me are very temporary. So I'll give the example of like conference presentation slides. I have worked on a conference presentation for 2 months where maybe I just did a little bit here and there. But often, like in the grand tradition of doing an academic conference presentation, a lot of times I'm only doing it 2 weeks before. And part of that is because I haven't totally made up my mind what I want to present, or maybe something about the conference is changing and I need to be responsive to those needs. But the way that I'm kind of thinking about those projects when I think about looking at completing a project and moving on to the next thing is I try to think of two buckets. So one would be those very temporary kind of things. Is there a conference coming up where maybe I need to devote a couple days to making some slides, or do I have to give a talk somewhere? And then the other project would be, or the next writing project coming up would be the other bucket. So what's the next writing thing that I'm going to do? So on my progress tracker, what I show on here is that I have a presentation on June 13th, and if you're listening to this in 2026, and it is for the Textbook and Academic Authors Association, their Summer Institute, which I'll say more about in a second. But I didn't start working on these slides yet. So this is now May 28th of 2026 when I'm recording this. So I haven't started those slides yet, but I know I need them by June 13th. The other thing that's happening in that period of time is that I know I'll take a couple of days off for vacation. So, I could still work. I still could be doing things, but I may not, I may not want to spend, say, 5 hours a day working on anything. So for me, thinking about, well, when am I really back into like the solid, trying to get some writing done? When am I back into that kind of a game? And for me, that won't happen until probably June 15th, 16th, around there. So if I'm going to do that, when I think about it on my progress tracker, or how I'm kind of looking at it, is that there's this really tight window between June 1st and June 13th. I'm going to work on those slides. So I already know if I'm going to the next project, what am I doing? Well, in that window, that's what I'm going to work on. But then from June 15th on, my other project to work on this summer, my next project on the list is finishing a half completed article that I keep putting off every single year and I just don't complete it. And so for me, one of my kind of fun things I'm going to do this summer is that's all I'm going to do. I'm not letting myself start another project until I get rid of that one. So the goal is to get rid of it, ideally by early August. So that's how I know. The other thing that I'm considering, and I'm switching screens right now to show PenZu, my online notebook where I store everything in my life. Everybody's heard about PenZu already. If you haven't, PenZu, check it out. You can look at it in our episodes if you look at them on YouTube or Apple. But the other thing that I'm doing is I'm making myself a list because you can't just finish a writing project and then immediately jump to the next one. Usually you need some orientation. You need to figure out where are those project pieces, or when was the last time I talked to my collaborator about that. So I just made myself some quick notes about a timeline. So on PenZu, I titled these notes SA, so scholarly accountability. It's just a reminder to myself, like, what am I supposed to be doing right now? So I did make a little list of, okay, for between June 1st and 13th, what do I need to do? I need to make some slides. I need some kind of an interactive activity. I need some breakout groups. I need a scholarly resource, which I did not put on there, but I usually like to give away something in a presentation. So I need to do that. But then the other thing I know is I'm still letting percolate in the back of my mind. Well, what do I need to do for that article? Because I haven't finished it. I've had it now. It's probably going on 7 years. It's one this should be easy for me to complete. So I should say this. If you've got one of these and you're like, ugh, these zombie projects you never finish, I don't know why I don't want to do this one. It should not be that hard. I've always wanted to do something else more. So, one thing that I need to do with this project, and sometimes I call this like a completion project or a yucky project. And actually, I will put in our show notes a link to our project mix episode where I kind of talk about all the different projects and how you can choose. This is part of your decision making. What kind of project are you going to do once you've completed one? So I know I'm going to do a completion project, like I want to get it finished, slash a yucky project, like one that's been sitting around for a long time. It's this half finished article. So I know I got to do that. But I haven't opened any of those files in probably 2 years because I worked on back-to-back book projects. It's probably been 3 years. So a long time. So I need to find where is the most recent draft for that project. But I also, one of the things I'm dealing with there is I have 2 interview transcripts for 4 participants or 5. I need to find all that stuff. I know I have it. I keep pretty good records. I've talked about, project management and organization and that kind of stuff. But in general, I have a spot where all my projects have a folder and everything for the project goes in that folder. But I know some of the material for this project also lives in email. So for me to be set up to start writing on this article by June 15th, I need to find all those pieces because one of the things I need to think about when I go to my writing session on June 15th, let's say, I want to schedule an hour to work on something. We all know that we can lose an hour very quickly trying to hunt for files and all that. So this is just one way that I'm trying to think about, well, what do we do in that transition period between working on, the last project and then moving to the next one. So that transition period is really important. So those are some of the things I'm doing. I also mentioned that I'm making my slides for our presentation or for the presentation for the Textbook and Academic Authors Summer Institute. So this is the first time that we've run something like that over at that organization. And if you have not heard about it, this is going to be really cool. It's an institute on Friday, June 12th and Saturday, June 13th, where there's all kinds of learning labs to learn writing skills, including the one that I'll be running. But also, really important, our keynote speaker is Brian Alexander, and his presentation is on how the AI revolution is impacting the future of textbook and academic publishing. So really great to listen to. There's a great theme with that one. And we've had people for the other learning labs on here. So you've heard plenty of interviews from some of the other presenters. So you can check out those episodes as well. But one of the things that you can do if you're interested in working over the summer and getting more things completed, like these projects, I will be running one of the institutes there. I haven't said a whole lot about it, but the one that I'm running is for our mid-career folks. So if you're somebody that is in the middle of your writing, you either need a little bit of a boost, you need some new strategies, you need to think about like, what is your legacy? How do you develop a legacy pipeline? All those things will be topics that I will be covering in my learning lab. So you're able, if you register for the Institute, and right now it is very, very cheap. There's a discount. I'll put a little link up there, but you can go for $75 for the Summer Institute. So really, really cheap for 2 days of programming, and lots of resources. But if you are a mid-career person, you might want to come and see mine. But if you are somebody that is new, I did an interview a couple weeks ago with Dr. Pat Goodson, who does all those wonderful books about scholarly writing productivity, 90 Days, 90 Ways, the Keep Writing book. There's like so many good ones. But we did an interview with her, which I will also link to in the show notes. And she's running the lab for brand new and aspiring authors. So say like graduate students, you're new to it's your first year in your academic job, you need to get some writing done. These are all really great resources for you. So I encourage you to check those out. And one of the other things about that, like bringing it back around in this particular episode, when you think about your next writing project, I really encourage you to attend, because going to these writing labs, I know one thing that I'm planning to do, because I'm also planning to go in addition to presenting, but I like to hear about some ideas for new projects and just think about, well, if I don't have a new project in the mix, what do I want that new project to be? And I feel like at this institute, this is, something that's not discipline specific. It's about scholarly writing in general, and how do we make new ideas in books and articles? How do we get things published? That's something that if you're listening to this podcast, probably many of us have in common, or you're a faculty developer supporting people that do that work. So I encourage you to register, and happy writing this week.